My parents staged meeting to disown me for family's sake. Too bad they didn't know about my secret $10 million fortune. Be me, 28-year-old James, black sheep of my family. At least that's what they've always called me. My family is obsessed with appearances. We're talking about a whole clan fixated on shiny things. Literally obsessed. Parents own this chain of high-end jewelry stores. The kind where rich people spend a year's worth of rent on something they'll wear twice. To them, jewelry isn't just business. It's their entire identity. And apparently, I'm the blemish that tarnishes their perfect image. But here's the thing. I'm not some deadbeat spending days playing video games in the basement. Far from it. Got my own business designing and customizing high-end motorcycles. Not talking about the kind you get from regular dealerships. These are handcrafted, sleek machines. Every single detail perfectly engineered. Build bikes that cost more than some luxury cars. My clients? They're tech moguls, athletes, serious collectors, all wanting something one of a kind. But I keep a low profile. No flashy cars. No overpriced watches. My workshop isn't in some fancy business park. It's in this old converted warehouse in Portland. Bought it outright, no loans needed. My team is small, just a few people I trust completely. We create bikes that have a waiting list 6 months long. Here's the kicker though. My family? They don't know any of this. To them, I'm just the guy who chose a hobby over the family business. Growing up, my parents made everything crystal clear. Success, money, keeping up appearances. That's all that mattered to them. My older brother Richard was always the chosen one. Groomed to take over the jewelry empire. Got that whole firstborn golden child thing down perfectly. Catherine, my sister, is their pride and joy. All because she married into serious money. Then there's Tommy, baby of the family. Kid can do no wrong, even though he's just coasting on the family name. I guess I was different from the start. Never wanted what they wanted. They loved being in the spotlight. Always networking. Always trying to maintain this perfect family image. I hated every second of it. When I was younger, used to sneak away from their fancy charity events. Would hide in garage for hours. Spent time tinkering with anything mechanical I could find. Broken radios, old bikes, whatever I could get my hands on. That's how I discovered my real passion. The older I got, the more obvious it became. Just didn't fit into their perfect little world. Parents wanted me to join the family business. Couldn't think of anything worse. Selling overpriced jewelry to people who care more about price tags than craftsmanship? Hard pass. After college, which they only paid for thinking I'd come to my senses, started working on my motorcycle designs. Began in my garage, just me and my tools. Demand grew faster than I expected. Poured everything I had into the business. Time, energy, every cent I owned. It paid off big time. My design started getting serious attention. Suddenly had clients throwing ridiculous money at me for custom builds. Here's where it gets interesting. Family knows I'm self-employed. They think I'm barely making ends meet. No idea how successful the business has become. Why? Because I don't show it off, drive a regular car, wear normal clothes, avoid their networking events like they're the plague. They take my quiet lifestyle as proof that I failed. Truth is, I'm doing better than all of them combined. Business hit 7 figures a while back. Got partnerships with major brands. Workshops booked out for months ahead. Reputation spreading globally. But none of that matters to them. In their eyes, success isn't real unless you're wearing it on your wrist or parking it in front of their house. Every time I visit them, it's the same routine. Richard starts bragging about his latest strategic partnership, which is just fancy talk for another deal our dad set up for him. Catherine drops hints about her fabulous life. Mostly involves being a professional rich person's wife. Tommy acts like he's still in his college frat days. Never grew up, never had to. And me, get those polite fake smiles and passive-aggressive comments about my potential. Still working on those bikes, son? Dad asks. That tone that just screams disappointment? Yeah, I say. Keep it short because what's the point of explaining? One time, Catherine straight up asked if I needed help finding a real job. Had to laugh at that one. Told her I was good. She gave me this look like she'd just done me some huge favor. The worst part? They don't even ask about my business. Not really. They assume it's just a phase. Like I'm some teenager who doesn't know what he's doing. It's insulting but also kind of funny. They're so wrapped up in their own world, so convinced their way is the only way. They don't even see what's right in front of them. I've kept my success to myself for a reason. Not hiding it. Just don't feel the need to prove anything. My work speaks for itself. People who matter know the truth. My clients respect what I do. My team is incredible. Built something I'm genuinely proud of. Don't need their validation. Definitely don't need their approval. But they're not content to let me live my life. Been dropping hints lately, making subtle comments about how my choices reflect on the family. Apparently not being part of the jewelry business is some kind of betrayal. They act like I owe them something, like I'm letting them down by not falling in line. Richard cornered me at one of Mom's dinner parties. Started lecturing me about family legacy. Actually said you're either with us or against us? Almost choked on my drink. Against you? Dude, I'm just trying to live my life. And then here we are. Text from Dad. Short and sharp. Family meeting 8 p.m. Be there. Show up to the family meeting, fully prepared for some kind of lecture, maybe even an argument. Wasn't ready for the circus waiting for me. Moment I walk in. Can feel the tension. Like stepping onto a stage. Script already written. I'm the only one who hasn't read it. Dad opens the door. Gives me this disapproving once-over. Like he's already annoyed that I exist. Doesn't even say hello. Just mutters, "You're late." Steps aside to let me in. For context, his definition of late is anything less than 10 minutes early. I'm actually on time. But to him, might as well be an hour late. Don't bother arguing. No point. Just shrug and walk in. House looks exactly the same as always. Spotless, expensive, completely soulless. Everything screams, look how much money we have. Got this huge crystal chandelier in the foyer. Perfect staged living room no one actually uses. All just for show. Speaking of the living room, that's where everyone's gathered. Sitting in this perfect little semicircle. Like they're about to hold a press conference. Richard's on one side, dressed in his usual business casual uniform, looking like he just came from some important meeting. Catherine's perched next to him, scrolling through her phone, pretending to be busy. Tommy's sprawled out in a chair, acting like he doesn't have a care in the world. But I know him well enough. Can tell he's enjoying whatever drama's about to unfold. Mom's sitting off to the side, looking like a nervous referee, wringing her hands, giving me that tight smile, the one she always uses when things are about to get uncomfortable. And then there's my designated chair, single lonely seat placed right in the center, facing all of them. So obvious it's an ambush. Almost laugh. Almost. Dad doesn't waste any time. As soon as I sit down, launches into his speech, all about family unity and preserving the legacy. Very official. Very rehearsed. Richard chimes in at some point, using phrases like long-term strategy and brand image. Roll my eyes so hard thought they might get stuck. Catherine wasn't far behind, throwing in comments about how my choices were problematic, how they reflected on the family as a whole. Keeps using words like reputation and status. Like those are the only things that matter. Tommy doesn't say much. Doesn't have to. Just sitting there, smirking. Like he's watching his favorite TV show. I don't say a word. Just let them talk. Nod occasionally to let them think I'm listening. Actually fascinating to see how much effort they put into this whole thing. They really think they're staging some kind of intervention, like they're saving me from a life of failure and embarrassment. Eventually, Catherine hands me a folder, slides it across the coffee table, like she's presenting some sacred document. This is for the good of the family, she says. Voice dripping with condescension. Open the folder. That's when I realize just how far they're willing to go. Inside are legal papers, all neatly organized, full of legal jargon. Don't need a lawyer to understand what this is. The gist is simple. They're cutting me off. No inheritance, no ties to the family business, no association with the family name. For a second, just stare at the papers. Not because I'm shocked, saw this coming from a mile away, but because it's hilarious. How seriously they're taking this. They really think this is some kind of punishment. Dad leans forward, tone all serious and authoritative. This isn't personal, James. It's about business. Your actions have consequences. Raise an eyebrow. My actions? You've made choices that don't align with the family's values, Richard says. Like he's reading from a script. Catherine nods. It's not just about you, James. It's about all of us. We have to protect the family name. Want to laugh, but don't? Instead, flip through the papers. Pretend to read them carefully. Can feel their eyes on me. Waiting for my reaction? Finally look up. Where do I sign? Room goes dead silent. Don't think they were expecting that. Mom's the first to break the silence. James, wait. Don't you think you should... Nope. Cut her off. This is exactly what you want, right? To cut me loose? Let's get it over with. Catherine blinks, clearly thrown off. It's not about cutting you loose, it's about setting boundaries. Boundaries? Repeat with a smirk. Sure, let's call it that. Dad gestures to the bottom of the page. Just sign there. So I do. Grab the pen. Scrawl my name at the bottom. Hand the folder back to Catherine. She looks like she doesn't know whether to be relieved or insulted. Is that all? Ask while standing up. Dad frowns. This isn't a joke, James. One day you'll understand that this was necessary. Nod. Already halfway to the door. Yeah, I'll be sure to send you a thank you card when that day comes. Walk out. Can feel their eyes on my back. Don't look back. They think they're making some kind of statement. But all they've done is prove what I've known all along. They don't understand me. They never will. Get back to my workshop that night. Don't feel upset or defeated. Honestly, feel relieved. That family meeting was just confirmation of something I'd known for years. I wasn't one of them. They had no idea who I was or what I'd built, and they weren't interested in finding out. Flick on the lights in my workshop. Fluorescent bulbs more comforting than anything I felt in that over-decorated house. This space is my sanctuary. Walls lined with tools, shelves stacked with custom parts, rows of partially built bikes waiting for me. All mine, built with my own 2 hands. My assistant Marcus is still there, finishing up some late orders. Looks up as I walk in. "Hey, how'd it go?" he asks. Wiping his hands on a shop rag. "They disowned me," say casually. Dropping my bag on the workbench, Marcus blinks. "Wait, like officially?" "Yup," say while grabbing a half-finished frame. "Start inspecting the welds. Sign the papers and everything." He lets out a low whistle. "Damn, you okay?" Shrug. Honestly, yeah. They think they cut me off, but I'm the one who's been carrying them emotionally for years. They did me a favor. We work in silence for a while. Only sounds are the buzz of tools, and occasional clang of metal. It's peaceful. Kind of peace I'd never felt around my fake family. Couple hours later, log into my business dashboard. Numbers make me smile. Orders through the roof. One of our recent designs went viral. On a niche motorcycle forum, now people practically throwing money at us. Custom requests, bulk orders from international clients, even inquiries from some big-name brands, wanting to collaborate. It's overwhelming in the best way. My inbox is flooded. Most are business-related, but there are a few that stand out. One from a journalist, wants to write a feature piece for a lifestyle magazine. Another from a pro racer, wants a custom bike for their next competition. Then there's one that makes me pause. Private client offering stupid money for a one-of-a-kind design. Lean back in my chair and laugh. My family thinks I'm wasting my life. This tinkering bringing in more money than their jewelry business ever would. Thing is, never cared about the money. Don't get me wrong, nice to be financially stable. Not having to worry about bills or debt. But that's not why I started this. Started it because I loved it. Wanted to create something with my hands. Something both functional and beautiful. Something that mattered. Money was just a nice bonus. Best part? Lets me keep building without compromise. Don't have to answer to anyone. Not investors. Not shareholders. And definitely not my family. Next morning, meet with Chris. He's my business partner. At our usual spot, this old diner downtown. Chris is one of those guys, always 10 steps ahead of everyone else. Reason we've been able to scale so quickly. "All right," he says, sliding into the booth. "What's the plan?" "For what?" Ask while sipping coffee. "For dealing with your family. They're going to come crawling back eventually. You know that, right?" Shrug. "Let them. Not going to waste energy worrying about them. Got bigger things to focus on." Chris smirks. "Fair enough. Speaking of bigger things, we need to talk about this." Pulls out his laptop. Shows me an email from one of our suppliers, offering exclusive deal on new materials. But we'd have to commit to larger production run. Can we handle it? Ask. "Easily," Chris says. "With the orders we've got coming in, we could double our output. Still have room to breathe. This is a no-brainer." "Do it," I say. Chris grins. "Done!" As weeks went by, things only got better. Magazine feature came out. Total game changer. Journalist wrote this glowing article about how I turned passion for bikes into thriving business, complete with photos of our workshop and some of our best designs. Response was insane. Orders tripled overnight. Social media accounts exploded with new followers. Had to hire 2 more people just to keep up with demand. Marcus, who'd been with me since garage days, started training the new hires, while I focused on designing next big project. Exhausting, but in the best way. Every now and then think about my family. Not in sad or nostalgic way, more like curiosity. Wonder if they'd seen the article or heard about the business. Part of me wanted them to know, just to see looks on their faces, but another part didn't care. Too busy building something real, something they'd never understand. One day got a call from company making high-end outdoor gear. Wanted to collaborate. Limited edition bike for their next product line. Kind of partnership that could take us next level. Couldn't say yes fast enough. Chris and I spent weeks hammering out details, working late nights, making sure everything perfect. By time prototypes were ready, knew we had something special. Launch was massive success. Bikes sold out within hours. Buzz around collaboration put us on map. In way we'd never been before, suddenly weren't just small niche business. We were a brand. Through it all, my family was silent. Not a call, not a text, nothing. Didn't know if they were ignoring me or just clueless about what I was doing. Either way didn't matter. Their silence didn't last long though. Started with a text. "We need to talk. Urgent family matters. Catherine was first to break silence, as figured she would be. My siblings were predictable like that. She always liked being peacemaker when things got messy, but her version of peace usually meant making sure everyone saw her as voice of reason. Ignored the text. Then came another one, this time from Richard. James, let's meet. I think there's been a misunderstanding. That made me laugh out loud. A misunderstanding? Same guy who sat there with perfect posture, watching me sign away my inheritance, now thinks we had a little miscommunication. Yeah, sure. Didn't reply to him either. Texts kept rolling in over next few days, each one more desperate than last. Tommy's finally showed up too, though his was just as lazy as he was. Yo, you around? Stuff's happening. Real poetic, that one. But the one that made me pause was from my dad. Come home, we need you. That's when knew something had shifted. Dad didn't ask for things. He commanded, expected, demanded. Come home was about as close to begging as he'd ever get. At first wasn't sure if wanted to respond. Part of me wanted to see just how far they'd go, but another part knew they'd eventually escalate. Wasn't in their nature to let things lie. They needed control, and I wasn't playing by their rules anymore. Week later, Chris and I were in workshop. Got call from unknown number. Hello, James, familiar voice said. Overly formal. It was Richard. We need to talk. Rolled my eyes. Got your texts? What do you want? He hesitated for a second, which told me everything needed to know. It's about the family business. There it was. The family business, of course. We're having some challenges, he admitted. Could practically hear pain in his voice as he said word challenges. It's not a great time for us? And we think you could help? I could help, I asked, leaning back in chair, smirking. That's interesting. Last time we talked, I was an embarrassment to the family. My choices didn't align with your values. Remember? James, Richard says. His tone shifting to that condescending older brother voice, the one he loves so much. Let's not dwell on the past. This is bigger than all of us. Have to laugh at that. No, it's not. It's about you, Richard, and Catherine, and Dad, and the fact that none of you have any idea how to adapt to a world that's moving faster than you are. He tries to push back. Cut him off. I'm busy, Richard. If the business is struggling, maybe you should have thought about that before you decided I wasn't good enough to be part of the family. Hang up before he can respond. That was satisfying. Next move came few days later, when Catherine showed up at workshop. Unannounced, was in middle of fine-tuning custom build for a new client. When saw her car pull into parking lot, she steps out in designer heels and sunglasses, like she's walking into fancy boutique, not place where grease and metal are main decor. Meet her at door, not bothering to hide annoyance. What are you doing here? She gives one of her overly polished smiles. James, we need to talk. I'm working, say crossing arms. This won't take long, she insists. Slips past me into workshop, glances around, clearly unimpressed by organized chaos. So this is what you've been doing? Bikes? Yep, I say, not offering anything more. She sighs and turns to face me. Look, things aren't great right now. The business is struggling, and Dad's not handling it well. Richard's trying to hold things together, but she trails off, waiting for me to jump in, save the day. I don't. Finally, she says, we need you, James. Those words hit differently, but not way she probably thought. For years, I'd been the one they dismissed, the one who didn't measure up, and now they needed me. What exactly do you think I can do? Ask while leaning against workbench. You've always been good with creative ideas? She says, tone just little too sweet. And you've clearly been doing okay for yourself here. Okay? Raise eyebrow. She flinches, realizing her mistake. I didn't mean it like that. We're in trouble, James. The market's changing, and we didn't adapt fast enough. Sales are down, and Dad's, well, he's too proud to admit we need help. But Richard and I think you could bring something new to the table. Stare at her for a long moment. Let her words hang in air. This was Catherine. Same person who used to laugh at my little project. Same one who once told me I was wasting my potential. And now here she was, asking for my help. Felt good. Let me get this straight. Say finally, you want me to come back and fix the business? After everything you guys pulled? She nods. We made mistakes. I'll admit that, but we're trying to make things right. Tilt head, pretending to consider it. Yeah, no, I'm good. Catherine's face falls. James, please. This isn't just about us. It's about the legacy Your legacy, correct her? Not mine. I already have something I'm proud of. And it doesn't involve begging people to buy overpriced necklaces? Her polished facade cracks for a second. See flash of frustration. But before she can say anything else, open door. Gesture for her to leave. Have a nice day, Catherine. Week later, Dad himself shows up at workshop, looking more tired and worn out than ever seen him. Doesn't even bother with pleasantries. We need to talk, he says. Voice low and serious. Lean against doorframe. Cross arms. Do we, though? He sighs, runs hand through graying hair. James, I'll admit it. We were wrong about you. About everything. The business is failing. I can't fix it. Your brother can't fix it. We need your help. Stare at him for a long moment. Let weight of his words sink in. This was the man who'd always preached about pride and reputation. Standing here now, practically begging for help. I'll think about it, say finally. Step aside to let him in? That was moment realized. Tables had completely turned. When told Dad I'd think about it, wasn't planning to let them off hook. If they wanted me to save family business, they were going to have to sweat for it. For once in their lives, they needed to understand what it felt like to not hold all cards. Next few days let them stew. No calls, no texts, nothing. Wasn't ignoring them to be petty. Okay, maybe just little. Wanted them to realize they weren't in control anymore. They disowned me like it was nothing. And now here they were, circling back, desperate to get me on board. I wasn't going to make it easy. Chris, of course, thought whole thing was hilarious. So let me get this straight, Chris says. Leaning against workbench. While I fine-tune frame, they need you to save their business. But they haven't apologized. And they definitely haven't admitted how much they screwed up. Pretty much, say smirking. And you're just letting them twist in the wind? Shrug. Feels fair. Chris laughs. Man, I wish I had your patience. I'd be rubbing it in their faces. Every chance I got. Oh, don't worry, say. They'll get what's coming, but it's not going to be on their terms. Few days later, Catherine called again. This time picked up. James, she says, sounding overly cheerful. Thanks for finally answering. Was starting to think you were avoiding us? Ignore the bait. What do you want? She hesitates. Can tell she's trying to figure out how to phrase whatever plea she's about to make. I wanted to check in. See if you've given any more thought to, helping out with the family business. I've thought about it, say. And? I have a few conditions. She's quiet for a moment. Okay, what kind of conditions? I want full control. Say enjoying the moment. Here's the deal. I'll take over the business. You'll stay on as employees. No titles. No power. Just workers. You'll answer to me. Catherine practically chokes. Wait, full control? James, that's non-negotiable. Cut her off. If you don't like it, find someone else to fix your mess. She sputters for a bit, trying to argue, but stay firm. Eventually says she'll talk to Dad and Richard. Get back to me. Next day, Dad shows up at workshop again. Looks more put together this time, but desperation's still there in his eyes. Catherine told me about your conditions, he says. As soon as walks in, then sighs. It's a big ask, James. You're asking us to hand over company that your mother and I built from ground up. Lean against workbench. Cross arms. No, I'm asking you to hand over company. That's failing because none of you know how to adapt. If you want me to save it, you have to let me run it my way. Otherwise, what's the point? He doesn't say anything for a long time. Can see internal struggle on his face. Finally, he nods. Fine, you can have full control, but there's one condition. Here we go. Mutter under breath. I want you to keep family name. Attached to business, he says. It's all we have left. Think about it for a moment. Wasn't unreasonable request? Honestly didn't care about name. One way or other. Deal, say. Real fun began after that. Family begrudgingly signed off. On me taking full control. Didn't waste any time diving in. If they thought this was going to be some slow, gentle transition, where they could argue or second-guess my decisions, they were dead wrong. This wasn't democracy. It was dictatorship. And I was one holding reins. First thing after getting in charge, dismantle their precious hierarchy. Richard had been running operations, like he was auditioning for a reality show about clueless executives. His idea of leadership was yelling at people when things went wrong, taking credit when things went right. That wasn't going to fly. Call staff meeting at main office. All managers, department heads, key employees invited. My family shows up too, looking uncomfortable as hell. sitting off to side, like kids waiting for principal. All right, start standing at head of conference table. Let's get one thing straight. Old way of doing things is dead. From now on, this company runs on results. Not nepotism? Few people glanced nervously at Richard, who's glaring at me like just insulted his entire existence. Point at whiteboard behind me. We're outlined clear strategy. We're streamlining everything. No more bloated budgets. No more unnecessary overhead. No more outdated practices. If you have ideas, I want to hear them. If you've been stuck under layers of bureaucracy, that ends today. This is your chance to prove what you're capable of. One of managers raises hand. And what about the family? Smirk. They'll be held to same standards as everyone else. No exceptions. Richard scoffs but ignore him. Catherine looks like wants to crawl under table. And Tommy? Well, Tommy was half asleep. Classic. Next tackled the stores, half of them bleeding money. Because hadn't been updated in decades? Displays were tired. Layouts were confusing. Staff looked like they were just waiting for someone to put them out of their misery. Shut down worst performing locations immediately. Some employees were upset, which understood, but made sure to offer severance packages and job placement assistance. This wasn't about punishing people, was about saving company. Remaining stores got complete overhaul, brought in designers to modernize spaces, turning them into sleek, minimalist showrooms. That focused on products instead of gimmicky sales tactics. Also introduced new inventory system, made it easier for customers to browse and buy, whether they were in store or online. Speaking of online, that was another major area where company had been failing. Their website looked like stuck in 2005, complete with clunky navigation and blurry photos. Scrapped whole thing. Hired team of developers to build new site from scratch. Fast, user-friendly, optimized for mobile. Within weeks of launching, online sales skyrocketed. Then came product line. This was where really put my stamp on things. For years, company had been churning out same old designs, gaudy, overpriced jewelry. That catered to aging clientele, was fine for older crowd, but completely ignored younger customers who wanted something fresh and modern. Introduced new collection, focused on minimalist, sustainable designs. Think elegant pieces made from recycled materials, with focus on craftsmanship and storytelling. Each piece came with card, explaining where materials came from and how they were repurposed. It was hit. People loved idea of owning something unique. That didn't come at expense of environment. At first, Catherine hated the idea. She argued it was too risky, not what our customers expect. But when numbers started coming in, she had to admit I was right. Of course, not everything went smoothly. There were plenty of moments. Had to deal with pushback, mostly from my own family. Richard in particular seemed determined to undermine me. At every turn, he'd pull me aside after meetings, say things like, "Are you sure this is the right move? I mean, you're new to this level of management." Would just smile and say, "You're welcome to step aside." If you think you can't handle the changes, that usually shut him up. And Tommy, honestly, didn't even know what he was doing. Half the time, he'd show up to meetings late, if at all, and contribute nothing. Eventually gave him minor role, managing company's social media accounts, which kept him busy enough without causing any real damage. Despite the challenges, results spoke for themselves. Within 6 months, company was unrecognizable, in the best way. Sales were up across the board, new product lines getting rave reviews. We'd even started attracting younger, more tech-savvy customers. Best part? My family was starting to feel power shift. They'd spent their entire lives at top of food chain, but now they were just employees. Like everyone else, they answered to me. One day called meeting, just the 4 of us, me, Dad, Richard, and Catherine. Wanted to make sure they understood exactly where we stood. "Let me be clear," says, leaning back in chair. "This company is mine now. If you want to stay, you'll do things my way. If you don't like it, there's the door." Dad frowns but doesn't say anything. Richard looks like wants to argue, but Catherine puts hand on his arm, shakes her head. "I'm serious, continue. I'm not here to keep family legacy alive. I'm here to build something better. If that means letting go of past, so be it." For once, no one has anything to say. Turning point came when one of industry's biggest trade shows invited us to showcase new collection, kind of event that could make or break company's reputation. Was determined to make impression. Designed booth myself, creating sleek, immersive experience. That highlighted sustainable designs and told story of company's transformation. My family was there, of course, but this time they weren't stars of show. I was. Customers, journalists, industry leaders flocked to our booth, praising new direction, asking how we'd managed To turn things around so quickly, made sure to give credit where due, mainly to employees who'd worked tirelessly to make it happen. As watched people admire pieces I'd helped create, felt sense of pride, never experienced before. This wasn't just about saving business, was about proving to myself and to them that was capable of so much more than they'd ever given me credit for. By end of show, we'd secured several new partnerships. Buzz around brand was bigger than ever. My family finally starting to understand I wasn't just black sheep anymore, I was one leading charge. Then one day it happened. Moment I'd been waiting for. Just wrapped up quarterly review meeting, where presented some of best numbers company had ever seen, was closing out presentation when Dad clears his throat. James, his voice softer than ever heard it. I just want to say, I'm proud of you. You've done something none of us could have done. You didn't just save the business. You made it better. Room goes silent. Even Richard and Catherine look surprised. Thanks, say keeping tone neutral. Catherine chimes in. Dad's right. We should have seen your potential sooner. You've taken this company to places we never thought possible. Richard nods reluctantly. You proved us all wrong. I can admit that. Strange feeling, hearing them admit it out loud. We've been talking, Dad continues. Glancing at others, we'd like to fix things. Not just the business, but us, the family. There it was, the apology, the olive branch. Sit back in chair. Let their words hang in air for a moment. I appreciate that, say. But let's be honest. You didn't want me in family. Until I became useful. That's not something I can forget. Catherine looks down, clearly uncomfortable, but doesn't argue. I'm not interested in pretending. Everything's fine. What we have now works. We're working together. That's it. I don't need anything more. Richard frowns. James, come on. We're family. We made mistakes, but we're trying to make it right. You're trying to make it right because you have no choice, say. Keeping tone calm. If this business had gone under, you wouldn't be here right now? Let's not rewrite history. Dad looks like wants to argue, but then sighs and nods. Fair enough. Here's the deal, say. Standing up, gathering my notes. I'll keep running the business, and you'll keep doing your jobs. But outside of that, we're good where we are. No more pretending to be happy family. We tried that, and it didn't work. Room goes quiet as leave meeting, but don't feel bad about it. Not angry, not bitter. Just know where I stand, and not going to let them cross that line again. Head back to workshop. Got designs to finish, and bikes to build. That's what really matters. Not their approval, not their acceptance. Just doing what I love, and doing it well. That's all I ever wanted, and that's all I need.